Introducing xCredit LP staking from industry-leading RWA loan collateralization platform Credifi. Earn 10% cashback in USDT after 90 days, with more rewards coming soon for xCredit holders. Visit v2.credifi.finance.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from a very rainy, wet and cold London today. A big shout out to everybody watching the stream live, and also equally big shout out to every one of you that watches this on recording. So we've had some really fantastic shows the last couple of weeks. A lot of you have been in touch saying how much value you've got out of them, which I really, really do appreciate. I do apologize if I haven't got around to getting back to you all individually at the moment. There's been a lot of messages, which has been very, very cool. We've had a huge influx of members, obviously, over the last few months as well at the Bird Nest, and that is everything that we're about. Members are really winning really, really, really hard at the moment. And for that, I just want to share some of the awesome testimonials and calls that we've had coming in from some of our members at the moment. So always love to see this. I probably don't do a good enough job of promoting it, but I am incredibly proud of the team that we've got over there. It's an amazing place to be, and the kind of place that you wake up on a Monday morning and you just want to jump out of bed. Even today, as you can probably hear from me, not feeling at my greatest, but just absolutely loving the vibe at the moment. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at Bitget as well, running some great promotions at the moment. You can find all of this stuff either to do with the memberships down in the link in the description, and I'll pop a reminder on there as we go through the show. So how are we all doing today, guys? I've got this up at the moment. I was actually going to put a Twitter post out, but I thought I'll do that afterwards. We'll run through it on the live show. Had some messages in this morning just asking about my thoughts on the update on this. So I wanted to just start here with Bitcoin, because as you know, Mondays typically our Bitcoin focused show. Telvin, hello mate. Singapore is raining too the whole day. I've not long been back from Singapore, mate, and I tell you what, it just blew me away. Some of the nicest people, just the culture of the place, just the cleanliness of it, everything. I will be back very, very soon. And a huge shout out to everybody over there who made our time just incredibly special. Some of the most beautiful places, people and food that I've ever had, all the way from the street markets to the restaurants. It was absolutely exceptional. So I'm sure it's even just as amazing in the rain. And we, funny enough, actually had some really torrential rain when we were there as well. And as it happened, I was very fortunate to be attending a Bitget dinner out there. And one of the events that we were running, or my colleagues were running, was a rooftop event, and the heavens just opened and you guys get some serious rain out there. Gio, my man, Nit as well, Calvin, great to see you all with us, as well as everybody else. I appreciate I only have access, I think, to the comments either through Twitter, but I know we've got, approaching probably about 1,000 people trickling in now. Anyway, let's give this some context, shall we? Let's just hide this just for a moment, right? It's not really relevant. The key thing here is how we arrived at this, all right? So just going to do this very quickly here. Turn those levels off for a moment. Now, quite simply, the key focus for me was on this weekly gap, all right? So how I'm looking at the markets is very much based on liquidity. The market's in this constant state of flux, attacking liquidity, resting above old highs, old lows, and looking to rebalance gaps. Okay, so a very kind of simplistic approach to this would be to just look at where the clean and clearest liquidity is on the higher time frame, for example, this swing high here, and then look at how price is respecting these gaps once it's taken liquidity like that. So, for example, we took this high here. All right, this small deviation here, like a swing failure, price comes back down underneath into this bullish gap, right? So sometimes helps, especially if you're not familiar with this, to do your bullish gaps in green, your bearish gaps in red, for example. And then as long as we're seeing these respected, and what I said was, look, what I really like about this was this long downside wick here. Okay, let me just do this for a second. This long downside wick here, look at the absorption coming in, right? Something I think, we can get so carried away when we're charting or looking at different things and indicators and everything else. And there's so many different ways to build successful trading systems in this. Often, especially when I work with traders or training traders, one of the things that we do is is kind of traders of all abilities, really, all the way up to, very proud to have said, the amount of traders we've taught over the past couple of years that now are full-time traders, right, that pursue this, that don't have any other source of income. But even with them, quite often it's the simple things that elude us, right? So looking at candles. Now, SZ was a huge influence for me with my trading with this. And one of the things that always stick in my head, or a couple of things, if anybody says deviation, it's his voice that comes straight to my mind. But it's also about the candles, right? And there's a few things, right? One, small body candles lead to big body candles, but also about the wicks and the bodies, right? So the bodies tell you what price achieved. Yeah. The wicks tell you what it tried to achieve. So when you start seeing these, this absorption coming in down here, yes, price is grinding its way down. The reason it's grinding its way down quite often here is because, it's giving you an indication of whether the liquidity is strong enough to cause that kind of reversal. And what you'll notice here is a couple of things. One, we stepped in, swept this low, and you see the absorption here, but then this candle tells you so much. The long upside wick here, right? And it's just telling you, look, you've taken liquidity from the prior week's high here. Price is pushing down. Look at it in terms of the body being the weight of the element, and that long tail is telling you that this is weighted downwards, where the opposite of this is true. You can see this kind of bullish pin bar with a short nose or like a thin-bodied hammer candle. And what's happened here is price has come down and swept this swing low, but it's also reacted from this bullish gap, okay? So what you've got is you've got those overlaying catalysts that this is a really good place to kind of sit in and look for your long positions. Now, there's many different ways to kind of enter this market, but one of the focuses I always have here is on what the candles are telling us, right? And we had a very similar situation here. Price has come up, it's taken a higher. So we expect naturally for there to be a correction, especially when we're looking on time frames like this, right? Because as we're looking at this, you're saying that this is a weekly time frame, right? It's a very, very high time frame, weekly, daily, 4 hour being one of the lowest that you would use to kind of, get that higher time frame bias. So it's natural that people that were long from down here, taking liquidity again, price drawing up further in this time towards this gap, we create this internal high, then we come and take that. Well, look, once we come and take this low, you see there's a natural correction here, even though price comes back down afterwards. We then come back up and take out this high. So now price comes down to rebalance this gap to just, it's not always technically, accurate in the way that we say this, but it's a very good way to visualize it, which is making sure to see the buyers stepping in here, right? And what happens if the buyers don't step in? Well, then we look for our inversions, all right? And that's when we're looking for gaps. This is a very good example, this one here. There was a bullish gap when price came up to here. We note the same thing, right? We want to see some form of liquidity taken. It doesn't look like it was, but that was a very, very, very minor sweep of that. That caused a strong bearish reaction, a bullish bodied candle. But again, look at the wick. Yeah, that long upside wick, heavy body leaning down. Then you get the bearish engulfing candle here. Your third point of confluence is when this gap here, because look, when we entered this gap here, then we're favoring long positions, and you would have got something off of that before price ultimately then broke down. When we closed below this, it then becomes an inversion gap. And then what we do is we look for liquidity lower, and ultimately that was the liquidity below this swing low. So where does that leave us at the moment? Well, quite simply, we've had a nice bullish reaction from this. We saw this really nice long downside wick to close out last week, and we've started this week with the strength that we expected. So as we decant this lower, then looking for overlaid confluence. So I'm going to just get rid of the weekly gap at the moment, all right? So we just going to pop that over there. Now, the reason that I've got this down here, and we'll look at the H4 one that's on the chart in a moment, we've got this daily gap and we've got this daily inversion, right? So let me just go on here for a minute and there we go. Now, what we can see here, this inversion gap. So what does this mean? This was a bearish gap. Price took liquidity from this low. The expectation is for price to draw back and rebalance this area and then move lower. Yeah, so before we had this candle print here, the idea was price would do this and this, or it would close above that gap here, which is what happened with the purple area. We can see this candle here. Then our expectation is the price that seeks out the next pool of liquidity, which actually, when we inverted that here, was this high over here, which has been our target up at 64,420, which you can see back into last week. Now, the other thing that we did here is when we closed above this and we closed this candle here, we did two very significant things that gave us an indication that price was looking to move higher. One of those was we set this gap. Yes, I'm going to do this in green again, just so that we can really get that, you know, that feeling and that connection that this is a bullish area. This is where we want to be looking for longs. So said we've drawn back down into this now. We're drawing into this at the time of writing the Bitcoin report yesterday. You can see an excerpt from that also on my Twitter account. But ultimately, we share a report with members every single day. One of the each individual member of the trading team gives their kind of thoughts and their kind of technical approach to what they're expecting from the markets. And I get the pleasure of doing it on a Sunday night, which I love, because it's when I'm trying to realign myself with the markets ready for Monday's open. Now, when we created this bullish gap here, we then are sat on top of this inversion gap. So that should be offering support. We now have a bullish gap where we're expecting to be able to look for longs. So all of a sudden, the bias becomes really simple for me. Hold this area, we look higher. In fact, I think that was the exact thing that I put on Twitter. Hold this, and we're only looking higher. Close below this, and that's the only point in which I would then expect to move back down to this area around about 59,000. This is also a completely flat number here on Bitget, and I'm sure it's similar with a lot of other exchanges. And that, you know, that's always to be considered, right? So the final part of this, the refining part on why we've been long from down here, and why, for example, there's already been some great trading calls shared over the last couple of days with members, is I said that I would like to see us draw down into this 4-hour gap, right? So look, daily bullish gap, support with the inversion here. Now we've got this 4-hour gap, this big one here, saying if price comes down into this, which we can see it wicks into it here, then that's the area that we want to be targeting. And we've got a beautiful target starting with these equal highs here. As you can see, we hadn't hit them at the time. So I'd normally then just draw them back now to show that that liquidity has been taken like we have with this high. And then for an entry method was really, really super simple. Breaker entries, I've always found are really, really good with crypto on, say, if you're using a 10-15 minute time frame entry. Suleiman K, hello, mate. And really simply here, just looking for this drive down on liquidity, right? And we had this really clean low over here. Also, we've cleaned out a lot of this. Yeah, you got this low here, that low, also this as well. And we even came down and kind of dug into this low down here. And then look at this. We had this beautiful collection here on a slightly higher time frame with these collective up close candles. This area for me is the accumulation phase before price swung to the offside. Yeah. So I'm using this as kind of like a breaker based area. I'm saying, okay, if that's the up move that led to the sweep on liquidity, what do I want to see? Well, I want to see the high that swept the low, which is the top of this, closed above. You'll see this, I label this up as like a breaker line, and it didn't quite happen there, right? Then we got this strong close above it here. And then obviously you can get, you know, your entry on there. And as we kind of showed earlier, quite a simple trade, really, all in all. You know where you're wrong. You know, you've got a clean point of invalidation below here. And then that move above here is telling me that, okay, this was the deviation below. Yeah, that was the swing to the offside. Price has now recovered with strength. So, you know, you can afford to be holding at least to those equal highs before you need to kind of mitigate any risk. So what I want to look at with you guys today as well, and I know that normally it's a little bit more kind of education focused. So if you do have any questions on that, please do let me know. But I think that, you know, as we're looking at this now, we've got some really, really interesting charts and stuff that's showing a lot of strength. We've got a trading team that's just been absolutely crushing it in the last few weeks. I mean, if you'd had traded a 10K account in September with us, just on the trading team calls alone, you would have made that back again with no leverage, right? So just shy of, I think, about 9,700. So even with $1,000 account, you know, you would have made about, you know, almost $1,000 back, right? Same with a $100 account, etc. So with that in mind, I think it actually makes a lot of sense to kind of open up today's session really to look, to go ahead and look at some alts, right? So I don't know if any of you guys have got anything that you are particularly interested in, but if you do, then please do let us know. It'd be great to kind of see if there's anything that's on your horizon, anything that you want to kind of get a little bit of technical analysis on. We can take a look at. I know there's some coins that are running incredibly hot at the moment. In fact, one of the things we can do over here is take a look at our website. ETH, yeah, sure, of course, yeah, no problem. Of course, the daddy of the alts. We can certainly take a look at that. Let me AAVE as well. Yeah, of course, mate, no problem. Let me just take you over to the website a minute as well here, and you guys can access this for free. It's thebirbnest.com. That's birbnest.com. You all these amazing free resources. If you go up to tools here, then you can go on everything from the breadth charts, which is really interesting information. Actually, here you can see, the percentage of coins above the 200-day moving average, above the 50-day and the 20-day as well. Now, the good thing about this is you can look at this in terms of strength. See how this is inclining here. Since we got to here, more and more coins getting above their longer moving average, which is showing a lot of strength. Then we can see the same thing here, that following trend here with the 50-day. And then the 20-day as well, we've seen we had this kind of sharp drop off here and then this big recovery. So this is really showing us a lot of aligned strength in the markets. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to our crypto screener. And I love this tool. So basically you've got all your different crypto tickers over here. And then apart from the fact that you've got your change, your weekly performance, your volume, 24 hour and the VWAP as well. The key thing I'm looking at here is, the 4 hour, the day, and the weekly. And this is either going to have a bull or bear sign. And that's one of the things I really love about this. So, you look at Bitcoin, bullish on the weekly, bullish on the day, bullish on the 4 hour, which is just brilliant. But a way you can find these opportunities sometimes as well, and obviously you really need to make sure with these assets that you're doing research on them as well. You understand the news drivers, the narratives that run behind it as well. So you look at something like XRP and you're saying, okay, well, look, this is how I would actually interpret this on XRP is that we've got a bearish weekly, a bearish daily, and a bullish 4 hour. Now, normally, you always want to give weight to the higher time frame, right? So what this is telling me here is that the higher time frame is still in a state of bearishness, right? So then all of a sudden, if we're looking at the 4 hour being bullish, this is either the early stages of a recovery for XRP, or this is the corrective leg up before another move down, right? Either way, it gives us a great bias to go to the charts and take a look. And actually, let's go and take a look at XRP. We'll definitely cover that. Where this one, I'm really liking the look of this one. What says it? EIGEN. EIGEN. All right, and why am I liking the look of this one? Well, quite simply, we can see we've got the moves here, which is quite nice. So we've got positive trend going on the weekly, on the daily, and now on the 4 hour. So as I'm looking at it, I'm saying, okay, well, the opposite of XRP, if the higher time frames are telling me that this is bullish, and the 4 hour is telling me it's bearish, then hopefully that 4 hour, the reason it's bearish is because that's the pullback on the charts that I want to, take a look at. And I also want to run through some of B-Pro with you guys as well today to show you some of the trades that's been catching. Again, something that's available to members. Our in-house indicator is the exact indicator that was custom built by CryptoBurb that he uses for all of his trades. And I think, the great thing about our community, great thing about our trading team, great thing about CryptoBurb is everything that we do is completely transparent. So the profit and loss account, all of the trades that we put in, the trading team performance every month as well. And you can see it's what he uses. I mean, he's made, I think, $600,000 already with that this year. So the other thing that I just want to go through, and you guys, you've got the economic calendar on here as well, which is really helpful. Like this week, for example, we're typically looking at high catalyst news events that affect the US market. And we can see using this that we don't have anything through until Thursday. All right. So that's really positive. So you can say, okay, well, maybe a bit of a benign kind of news week will help that really settle with crypto. That risk bid is definitely in at the moment. The S&P 500 has, set another all-time high last week as well, the Dow Jones too. So, the risk bid is in. We need to take a look at that. Consider, what's the overall market's appetite for risk, and that the higher the risk appetite typically works very well for things like cryptocurrency. And the other thing I want to look at here as well is the crypto heat map. Right, and this is just a great way to get this overview of the market. Look how green everything is here. You look on here and you say, right, this is a very prosperous market. This is looking to move up. But then I'm also looking for opportunities here as well. And I'm saying, okay, SUI, SUI, that has been a real massive performer, right? So down 4% to start the day. Is that the dip that everybody's talking about that they want to see to buy? So many people will talk about dips and they want the dips, and then they panic when the dips happen, and then they bemoan the fact that, they didn't catch it before the pumps. You have to take risk in this market, but it has to be calculated risk and managed risk as well. The other thing we can do is look at the stock heat map, right? Now, this is based on the S&P 500 index. You can change that if you want as well. And as you can see, it's a little bit more of a kind of mixed bag across here. Things like NVIDIA, which have been so huge in supporting that risk bid for S&P 500 for the NASDAQ, for example, as well. That huge AI bid coming in. Apple, we can see, is down a little bit, relatively flat. Google, Amazon. But then as you're looking across the board, you're saying, okay, you're not seeing those big seas of red. We've seen Tesla have a sell-off again, but again, a little bit more kind of news and earnings related with that one. Or not so much earnings. I think the earnings came in quite well for them, right? But they were talking about that overall progression over time versus their metrics. So that's just a really cool thing that you can do, right? So please do feel free to go over there. There's some amazing free resources on there, like our infographics as well, all available for free. Anything that kind of helps you get that little leg up in the markets. So back to the charts. We're going to take a look. Let me just take a look on here for a moment. So I've got that one. Got ETH, got XRP, AAVE, Solomon K, yeah, of course. Dread Pirate Roberts. So that's an awesome name, my friend. Obviously, the creator of the dark web. Some brilliant books written about Dread Pirate Roberts. But a very good question as well. What was the cause of those God candles? So, I mean, typically what happens when you see large expansions on any time frame is you're coming off a period of accumulation, and then you're looking at some kind of liquidity sweep, right? So markets generally obviously go from a state of ranging, so a state of compression. So you can see in this area here, basically what happened, and I'll just do it in a dark box, but price was basically in this quite tight range here. Do that in just a blue box, for example. Then what we get here is you get a move offside on that range, okay? So that then ends up being a manipulation, and then you get this large expansion. It's like a power of three type move. Now, markets obviously work in a state of flux with liquidity. So often when you see these big moves up, and this is the same on a daily as it will be on a 15-minute, etc., then what you're saying is the market then runs incredibly hot. That's when obviously the buying pressure kind of overwhelms the selling pressure. And that's often where you get gaps as well. So for example, we see this move here. What happens? Same kind of principle here, right? The market moves up to catch participants offside, to squeeze them. You get the deviation there at that level. Price gets back underneath, retests the underside, sells off to this first stage. And then in here, right, where more people are either getting trapped, people are starting to go long here because you've taken liquidity from those lows, or you've come into a key support resistance level. When those people are then trapped, the move to the offside often happens very, very quickly and doesn't really allow participants to get involved. Those that get involved in these moves quite late, are often then punished with the market moving the opposite direction, all right, attacking ultimately all the liquidity that's left up here or higher by those over-leveraged positions. Now, these gaps that are caused in the big sell-offs or the big pumps, so like this candle here, these tell us a lot because this is a big bearish gap here, and you get the gaps because there's a failure in order pairing, because basically people are just selling aggressively here, okay? There's no buyers on the other side to prop that up, to make the price action balance. So when you come back to these areas, it's natural to expect a rejection here. However, when you violate them like we did with this candle, and the way that we do it is so important, in my opinion anyway, when you're looking at the momentum, that big body candle at just zero wick, that is just a big booming bid coming in there. Look at that. That is buyer pressure all day long. Close above it, invert this area, And then, as we were looking at before, we then look for this area to offer support. Okay. So in terms of what causes those, it's aggressive buying, aggressive selling. Okay. But then what they tell us and how we can use them is also really, really key, especially in the way that I trade. So we take a look at that. Calvin, yeah, POPCAT. So I don't know if you guys saw, actually, I think probably got one on here, one of our most impressive recent calls, which was from one of our amazing trading team called the Trading Tank. Here he is, the absolute legend that he is. And again, you know, when you're a member over at the Bourbonness, you get access to all of the professional trading team. We're not just, you know, people hanging about on Twitter. You're all professional traders with huge backgrounds and proven track records over a number of years. I think the least experienced person on our team must have been doing this now for a minimum of 4 to 5 years. Okay, so when you look at these two, especially great examples, Just Pit and Trading Tank, POPCAT call over here, you know, TP4 officially hit. We'd had people in all the way from down here. I mean, actually, it's one of many calls on that was plus 77%. We had another example here on Mother. You know, and there's loads and loads and loads of these. I'm not going to sit here and shill them to you. You can come on board, get access to all of that. You can find the WAP link down in the description. But ultimately, the reason that we do this is so that people can make some money on these calls, get aligned with the trading team so that they can put their time and effort into the incredible resources we have available from courses, mentoring, you know, live trading sessions, all of that, to be able to do this stuff yourself, right? To pursue your own financial freedom. Anyway, so Mike Mads, what are your thoughts on ETH BTC? Well, we can absolutely take a look, mate. So ETH BTC as well. Sebster, think about the pop. Yeah, absolutely. So meme coins. Yeah, I mean, look, meme coins on the side of this, there's a couple of, well, I'm on two sides of this. One, just be prepared to lose anything you put into them. Just, I think that's how you approach these kind of high risk tokens, especially a lot that don't really have much basis other than the fact that they are a meme jumping on a very hot narrative. Doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money on them. It just means that with a risk profile being so high, you just want to show that little bit extra caution, okay? And really, really go deep in your research. But we will take a look at the example and we'll take a look at POPCAT. Undervalued tokens. CTSI, yeah, do you know what? Jesus. CTSI is one I remember from a long one at IOTX as well. Daniel, yeah, of course, take a look at INJ. I'm going to do my best to get through all of these in the next kind of 20, 30 minutes, guys. So please do bear with me. Meme tokens, yeah, Brett as well. Yeah, it does look really interesting as well. So let's take a look at Brett. Again, jumping on that kind of meme narrative, nothing wrong with that. Buzzmakers, here we go. Let's take a look at Near, shall we, as well? And we'll Near. Peter, really good question. Let me run through that with you, mate. We'll do that. Hans, my friend, how the devil are you? Brilliant to see you on there. And we'll close up with a little look on Saga. There's quite a lot on there, guys, so I'm going to really rip through these. But let's finish up here on BTC quickly, because our friend Peter here, or Peter Pascal Schmidt, says makes a very, very good point. Where is that next kind of support and resistance we're looking at? So if we go ultimately to the higher time frames, which I like to do, I like to see and take a look to see if there's anything clear and obvious here on the weekly. And what I'm going to do is just pop these levels on for you. All right. Now this looks really super messy, obviously here on a weekly, but we can see the significance of these levels, right? So I'm just going to focus mainly on recent price action. The thinner lines here will become more prominent as we move down to the 4-hour chart and the hourly, right? These are more the kind of daily and weekly levels. We can see this level here, you know, might look a bit messing here, right? But good retest, lost this level here, acted as support here, close underneath, resistance, deviation, sell-off, resistance, strong resistance, close above, perfect retest of this level before selling up to this level here. So you can see at this one here, our 64,802 level, right? That is, for me, a really key level, and price is really kind of moving towards this. Now, something we do really want to be aware of here, and let me just clean this up a little bit by kind of getting rid of some of these, is this sloped resistance that we have, right? So if I zoom out here, there's two really key points of interest. There's this one, the lower of which we have a lot of significant touch points on here. See, look, resistance, 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 resistance. So when price gets to here, what I'm really interested in is how it intersects with this 65,505 level. So, you know, the reason that I wouldn't be rushing into long positions here, right? Why we wanted to be long from down here, because we had all this upside to this level. But I'm interested in see how this closes out at 64,802 and then also 65,505. But actually, this swing high could very much come into play at 66,404. We could end up seeing a situation where, we get this continued expansion here. As he said, doesn't look that ridiculous. Get that continued expansion. Ultimately, for price to then do something like this, right? Seeing quite a long upside wick come into there and seeing that rejection. And then it's a case of saying, okay, can price kind of hold these levels here, right? That's what you want to see. And then maybe a move down back above here, use this as a base, and then look that to move higher, in which case it would then be looking up to the 67,247 level for me, right? So let me drop this down onto a 4 hour so you guys can see it just a little bit clearer. All right. So again, you can see these key areas of resistance turn to support, these retests. When you lose these areas, you look for that underside retest for price to sell off. But you can really see how price has struggled. We'd had these expansions above, and then price ultimately gets back below, and you see those really aggressive sell-offs. Again, when it got to here, look how price came up, tried briefly to grind above it, held above our 65,505 level. This candle then closed below both, and ultimately then sold off aggressively to find support down here at 62,238. Now we had some brilliant buys coming down here because we reclaimed it with this candle here, and then we got the perfect retest before price shot up. So I'm really interested to see how price reacts here. I'm not looking to ape into any long positions. What I'd rather see is price kind of correct a little lower to one of these inefficiencies below us, one of these gaps, find some run on. But I do feel like this area up here now is providing a really, really good draw for Bitcoin. So what we're going to do now is we're really just going to ape in, because there's about 10 different ones to go. So I'm going to take a very quick sip of water, and then we're going to really smash in. Right. Give me 1 second, guys, and then we are going to start with ETH. Thought I'd save you all the displeasure of making you hear me blow my nose and guzzle some water before we go. So, ETH, let us take a look what we have got here. So, okay, so we can see some of our TA sitting up here from previous weeks. So let's take a look, first of all, on our weekly chart. Really clean support resistance level here from ETH. Just, this was just beautiful when you come into this area. And then, to be honest, this for me showed a lot of strength here, because my assumption is we started to break back down. What do? We set this order block. Okay, you'll just see these as a black line on the flat end of the candle, those two up close candles here and down. I'm not actually Hans. I am out of milk, unfortunately. So there's going to have to be a very quick dispatch round to the shops after this. I was underprepared, so I had 2-3 cups this morning, and then I basically made some with some cream and a little bit of water. But yeah, you can't be a good bit of whole milk. So it's the only reason I'm off the tea wagon at the moment, mate. So this up close candles here, this was just a beautiful move lower for me. Why? Because we were reacting at this bearish gap. Okay, so bearish gap over here. Reaction within here, closed below this candle here. So I was quite surprised to see price not come down and take out this low. Ultimately, it reacted very, very close to our support level here. And then we managed to catch that bid higher. So one of the key things here for me was the fact we failed to take this low. This could be showing a lot of strength here, right? That could be a really, really good thing. So we want to kind of keep an eye on that. But actually, really, we're going to get most of it done on the day. It does suck, Hans. You're absolutely right about that on every level. I am tealess for my live stream. I feel borderline lost. So look, this isn't really relevant anymore. The only purpose it serves is that we can look back on the data that we've got from it, which is really important. And also, to go in there and when we had this big sell-off to say, look, I told you so. Wicks were going above this. We weren't getting acceptance. Price was clearly looking to sell off lower to these, which it did. But I'm not really about that, to be honest. This game isn't as much about being right as it is about being profitable. I see a lot of people who can call, good levels and bits and pieces like that. It doesn't mean that it makes them profitable traders, right? So, also just always does pay to be a little bit humble as well. So this for me is just so clean. Big bearish gap here, which is providing the draw on liquidity. Again, we see how price didn't take out this low. This is what surprised me. I thought we would get this sweep, but we've been seeing this a little bit actually with Ethereum. If we were looking at this, for example, like against the NASDAQ chart, and I'm not actually going to use the NASDAQ chart here. What I am going to use is I am going to look at this here, and I'm just going to get rid of these drawings for a moment on this one, right? No, let's lock in this. There we go. So looking at the daily chart here, if I was comparing, and you can do this with crypto as well, right? But one of the real tricks to trading traditional markets like equity markets, which is where I made most of my career before kind of moving across to crypto, really having a heavy focus on crypto, we would compare the S&P 500, for example, with the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones. Now, you're talking about correlated markets, right? Correlated risk markets. So what you're looking for is what's known as you'll know them as divergences, right? So what we're looking at here on ETH is, if we look at this, so we're on 3rd of October, take the same day on Bitcoin. Yeah, of course it's going to do that, isn't it? Silly me. But anyway, we come in, excuse me, we can see here that we take this line. Yeah, so what have we done? We've swept liquidity below that low. So if you remember that for me for a moment, because what I can do is I can turn these off and make that a little bit cleaner straight away, right? So we took that low. Now let's look at the same date here. You notice how we didn't take that low. So that's a divergence, because what you would do is you would look at it like this. Yeah. So like you would get a divergence on an RSI where you got conflicting data. What's happening here? Well, Bitcoin had to sweep liquidity from the low here. It needed to take that liquidity in order to fuel that move higher. Yeah, because under these lows, what are there? A load of sell stops. Yeah. So think of it like this. People that place their stop losses under here, this big pile of liquidity, right? All these sell stops, because market's moving up, everyone's on side. Then when it comes down to take them out, these orders get puked back into the market. And I'm sorry to use that word, very visceral, I know, but it's a very good descriptive word. They get puked back into the market in the form of market orders, right? Meaning that they just get thrown in at the best available price. It's not a limit order. So then what happens is you have this beautiful big pool of liquidity here that other players can step in and say, well, you know what, we'll take the other side of that. We'll take all that liquidity to fill our bids, yeah? And then the market moves up. So when you see something like this, like we saw here on ETH, right? We can see that ETH didn't take that low, right? It didn't need to take that liquidity. So technically, this thing is showing even more strength. Now, with regards to the gentleman earlier that was asking in terms of, with the alt season, right? I remember saw the message up here. I'm sorry, because it's quite far back in the chat. I think it was Telvin, but yeah, when can we have a real alt rally? Well, this is what we want to see. We want to see Bitcoin kind of, not that it's doing it yet, but Bitcoin chilling out a bit and then that bid coming into Ethereum. And this was a really good start. Okay, seeing this divergence here between these two, with ETH showing more strength here, with the lack of needing to take liquidity. Basically, the buyers just front ran this and really got involved versus Bitcoin. All right, so with that in mind, what does that all mean? Well, at the moment, I'm very, very cautious here on Ethereum. My absolute ideal scenario would be to get price to come back to this kind of area here where we've got this order block. Price has come back down. We're now in this gap, correct back down to here. I'd like to see this rebalance a little bit more, meaning to see a bit more price action push up into this, filling as much of this as possible. Look, best case scenario here, or not best case, but very bullish case, is that we close above it. If we close above it and invert this, like we did with this gap here, yeah, closed above it here, what did we say? Expect this area to act as support as price then moves up, which is exactly what it did. That's what we want to see up here. All right, that's what we want to see up here with ETH. So at the moment, we'd like to see price come back a little bit to kind of catch some bids. Let's take a look at it on the 4 hour as well. We're going to focus mainly on the daily and the 4 hour here. And the 4 hour gives us this really good order block here. I think also something else we want to be aware of here is this really lovely bullish gap. So ideal scenario for me is price moves up a little bit, comes back down, we catch some bids in this area here, and then price ultimately moves up from there. Now, price may just be really super strong here, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that that can be the case because, you know, when price runs, like the gentleman earlier said, dread pirate robbers, what are these big God candles about, right? Look at them. When price really goes, you know, unless you had the wherewithal and the systems to get involved down here, right, before price had this larger move up, for example, you see the liquidity sweep coming in here, right? Very, very simple if you look and focus on market structure as well, guys, right? So you see the liquidity sweep come in here, then you've got a few different things that can teach you a lot. This inversion gives you the first sign of strength, and look how the bodies respect it perfectly. We close above it here. People will start aping in here, and then this is the mistake a lot of the time, right? It's very, very difficult to be patient in this game. Price comes up to here, and then we get this retest, right? Then what are we retesting into? Just say to yourself, what other confluence do we have? Yeah, really simply, you've got a really nice order block sat here as well. You know, when price set this order block and moved away from it, we got this immediate retest showing this bullish catalyst. Then we just wait for price to come back down, and these are the areas we want to buy. The thing is, when price runs really hot, people then start aping in and FOMOing in around here. Market has a pretty keen sense of humor to come back down and take those people out before it then moves to its ultimately moves back aligned with the trend. So really, this is the area I'm watching. On an hourly scale, where am I? Well, actually, on an hourly scale, I do like the fact we've closed above this here, right? So if I'm looking at this on a really low time frame for your intraday traders here, this is the hourly order block that we've got here, close above this one here. And then I think we really may be just too strong to kind of move down before we move up. But technically, I really would prefer to see price pull back a little bit here to give us some buying opportunities in and around there. Also, what we want to consider here is that we're running a very hot dollar today as well. The dollar's really caught a bid this morning. US 2s and 10s, which are the bonds, they're looking pretty strong as well. But we've got strong equity markets. We've got strong indices with the NASDAQ. So all in all, there's this quite kind of prosperous start across the week. Mondays can see that quite a lot as we wait for Monday's range to develop as well. So that's to always be considered. Right, so we're now going to try and rip through a lot of these charts in a row, right? We've got about 15 minutes left in the show and about 10 to run through. So really do want to take a look at XRP. Okay, so this is what we were talking about. This came from our crypto screener earlier as well, right? Saying that we've seen here with XRP that we've just, I mean, this thing has just been kind of consolidating here for quite some time, right? Look, taking the lows, coming back out, really kind of failure to take the highs, but it did recently on a weekly scale, right? And we saw that rejection lower. Now, something to consider here is, okay, what's price done last, or where's the most likely draw on liquidity here? Well, quite simply, on a weekly scale, we've got this big bearish gap above us, which I think is probably going to draw price towards it. It would have been nice to see price take some liquidity below this low, okay? And I tell you as for why it's now left relative equal lows here. But again, either this is about to show a lot of strength and really start to rip because it doesn't need to take that liquidity, or we are due a move down into this before we see any kind of recovery come in. Moving on to a daily scale now as well, we can see, okay, we can see that this overlays here. So let's just, obviously, again, you want to make sure that you're paying attention and paying homage to the higher time frames. But as we see here, we've got the weekly gap overlaid here. We've also got this big daily gap here as well, which is drawing price higher. By the way, Peter, thank you very much. Suleiman K as well. And Hans, it definitely does suck to be without tea. I can't tell you how much I miss a good brew, especially on a live show, right? One thing that could support our theory for a move up or down here is, one thing I like is if we look at the swing lows below here, untapped swing low, untapped swing low, untapped swing low on this candle close today. Price off, and again, remember, we can see this. If people really want price to go up here, and especially if you've got bullish market conditions, what happens? Well, people start to ape into positions here with leverage. Where are their stop losses? Under here, under here, under here. So what happens? The market is a cruel mistress. You see this small move up, wipes out all that liquidity, and then ultimately has that move to the upside. So that's the kind of thing that I would be looking at here, because very, very difficult. I don't mind being long at the moment if I find a good reason to do so here, because this is the gap. So for me, price has got to be reaching up into these realms up here, right? If you start looking at the cluster of these untapped highs, you can start to see, okay, a lot of liquidity up here attracting price. So if we move to the 4 hour, this is where I get my kind of cleanest idea here, really, okay? And that's because we've had this 4 hour inversion. Remember, this is a bearish gap. Look at how price moved through it. Yeah, look at the big bodied candle. That tells you the price is ready to move. And then you get this beautiful retest of it here. And actually also created this bullish gap here as well. So again, you can start to see here how these kind of layers of support. So remember, as we looked at the Bitcoin chart earlier as well, seeing that layered support in there and how price utilized that to really move higher. So I've got a good indication here of an area I can look like if we pull back to this. This again is ideally what I'd like to see with XRP. Yeah, it's something like that. However, if price just runs really hot and it just runs straight up into this, well, then I can say to myself, right, and then we see how price reacts here. All of a sudden we get that rejection, we get back underneath. Yeah, then we know if we start getting back and underside retesting this, then this is the key area that we're going to look for, right? We've got this bullish gap down below us. So, again, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm not kind of enforcing my will on the market. I'm waiting for the market to kind of give me an indication. So I have key areas that I want to buy. Do I want to be a buyer here? Not really. If I was really desperate, I'm really looking at this on an intraday basis, what would I need to see? Well, quite simply at the moment, I'd want to see this hold. All right, this is the last down close candle before this large expansion higher. Ultimately, price has rejected over here at this gap. Yeah, we can see how the body's respected this, right? So this retains close above this. I think we move to this higher. But ultimately, while we respect this, it's now been rebalanced. So an ideal scenario here would be to see price come into here for a bid. But actually, you know what? This on the hourly here as well overlays even more what we were just discussing, right? Nice liquidity pull down here. Big higher time frame gaps down here that we can hold. So we get that move lower, then this is the area I think that's really key to look for those bids to come in and then move price higher. For those of you that are interested, I don't just kind of bid areas blind. I always look for some kind of reaction, right? And normally the patterns which are most common are you see a clean low set at a resistance or a support level. In this case, we're looking to go long. We're looking for a support level or a bullish gap or, a breaker, something that gives us an indication that this is an area we're looking to be a buyer. We want to see a local low set. We want to see that local low swept. I then want to see the low, or in this case, the high that led to the sweep of the low broken above with momentum. And then we can pretty safely say, okay, well, that's most likely been the sweep on liquidity. This is where we've got our structure shift. All right. And then as we come up, we set the higher high, this area here, as we come back in. Remember, I said to you guys earlier about this being a breaker line, as I used to call it in my old entry model system. Comes back into this area here. You could have a breaker candle in here. You could have a fair value gap in here. You could have an inversion in this part of the leg. The key thing is that you see that reaction at a key buying level or area, and then you wait for that kind of pattern to emerge. You wait for that liquidity to be swept, people to get caught on the offside, big impulse move higher, a large move telling you that buyers are stepping in. And then it's a good way to get involved because you're a buyer here. You know where you're wrong because you're wrong underneath that swing low, and you can trade it to at least here. When you get to this point, you can trim a little bit of profit, you can move your stop loss off to mitigate your risk, and you can hold your lion's share for much higher, all right? Ultimately giving you good higher probability trade setups. So XRP, again, very, very similar. We know the levels that we want to be involved there. So this one was interesting, EIGEN USDT. What have we got? So I don't think I've charted this out before. All right, so there's not exactly tons of history on this, but this was another one that came back really interesting from the screener, right? The fact that higher timeframes were really pushing bullish here, lower timeframes, were giving us more indication. So let's take a look down on the 4 hour. Well, actually, daily wise, there's not tons here, but actually on the daily scale, we have, close below setting this order block here, bearish order block, these two up close candles, this close below here. Expectation for me would be for price to retest this and then sell off to liquidity resting below that low. But by the looks of things, it's already done that. We'd left equal lows there as well. Okay, with that low and that low there. So now as we look on the 4 hour, we can see what happens. We got the close below. Look at these beautiful retests. Price ran into this liquidity and they had a pretty strong reaction up. So now we're saying, okay, this area kind of rejected price once. You're now seeing that rejection step in a second time. This price action is very, very balanced, and all of these consecutive down close candles make it quite difficult actually. But one thing we can see is this swing high is also adding to capping the market. So again, I would want to see price establish itself above here. I'm actually going to use the hourly for this one because I think this will give us a little bit of a cleaner indication. So this is the gap, I think, that's probably the most important at the moment. We can see support here, support again here, right? Now, we can see that long upside wick there showing quite a strong rejection here. So I think we would want to see in this area provide the catalyst, right, for price to establish itself above here. I think if we break down and start closing below here, price could be searching out liquidity a little bit lower. So AAVE. Let's have a look at our old friend AAVE, shall we? So again, actually, first thing that kind of stands out to me here is this nice gap inversion, but it's not actually confirmed yet. Now we can see when this was a bearish gap, it did its job really, really well. Rejection here, price ultimately selling off. Again, surprised to not see it take liquidity from the lows, but when we look at ETH and we look at that same day we studied on Bitcoin, remember how we had that divergence between ETH and Bitcoin. And I think a lot of the alts are also showing that kind of relative strength in there as well. So that's definitely something of interest. The other thing that's of interest here on a daily scale is the fact that we've set this order block underneath price here as well, which hasn't been retested. And now we've looked like, have we? No, we haven't closed above this yet. So until this daily candle does close above, this doesn't invert, it's still a bearish gap, right? Now, you might think, yeah, but we're miles above that, so it doesn't really matter. Look, this candle here looked like it was going to be well above it as well, and ultimately then got rejected straight back in. So that's why it is important to wait for these closes. So that's pretty much as clear as it gets there, isn't it? In terms of the next liquidity, we are very, very close to it here. Yeah, 164.29. So moving on to the 4 hour. If we don't take this liquidity up here, we are within this big bearish gap, right? But we have just closed above it by a smidgen over there, right? So for me, I think this is a super clear play today. I like this gap. Remember, like we said as well, if we leave this as a failure swing, not a swing failure because we haven't taken it, this is a failure swing, meaning it's basically leaving this now as equal highs. Price comes down into this area here. This is a great place to look for the longs to then come back up and attack that area higher. So POPCAT. Excuse me, nobody has been crushing this quite like Jay, who is the trading tank. This guy has just had some animal calls on this. And actually immediately as I step onto the daily, I love this chart. Why? We've just confirmed a really big order block here. I don't mind that price is back below it now because technically with these, what I'm quite focused on is looking towards the equilibrium of this. All right, so just the low of that wick to the flat of the body there. That's how I do it. You know, please do your own kind of research on that, what you find most useful. This is the 50%. As long as price doesn't start closing into this, then I'm really happy. The other thing here as well is we've got this kind of this recent expansion leg, which is this. We're just starting to dip into this lower 50% of that here, meaning that from a risk to reward perspective, it's favoring long setups. Well, that's even better news because what are we doing now? Well, we're drawing down into a big bullish order block and we're also finding support of this bullish gap. So this, for me, is the kind of area I'd be looking to get re-involved for, you know, more potential long setups. Like I say, not blind, never blind, but I like the look of this wick, particularly to the downside, this bullish pin bar candle, another one with a slightly longer nose. But this at the moment here is looking like it's turning a little bit, all right? So if you wanted an extra confirmation play, what I'd be looking for here is saying, okay, we've got this bearish gap. We can see it's currently rejected price here. If we see price close above that, I don't think there's much stopping it taking out all of this liquidity here and ultimately then moving higher. But we want to see this area hold, yeah? If we come down and, you know, we would need it on a daily scale, remember, but if we got a daily close below this here, inverting it, then this low here is a really, really good target to look for. you know, the market again has a funny way of doing this where it catches you offside or catches as many participants offside as possible. So lots of people looking to go long here because it's got the narrative, it's been super hot. Those people end up ultimately, you know, not always, but quite often those people end up getting trashed. The liquidity gets taken, you know, funding rate resets, price comes back down, then people start getting bearish here only to watch liquidity get taken on this side. Price finds support, this bullish gap here, and then for, you know, that pump to step back in. So that's where I am with that one. I think that one's really, really nice and simple. Let's take a look as well. So someone said about ETH BTC, right? So let's take a look at ETH BTC, shall we, over our strategic partners Binance. Okay, so let's take a look. Yeah, so we can see here as we move. It's always good when you look back on some charts and some of it's worked, right? So believe me, there'll be lots of times you look back on your charts and you'll see this arrow and you've got every conviction that you do that, and then you watch it go the other way. But that's why we always want to have plans to trade in both directions, right? So just looking at this here. What do we have here? This is an interesting one because if we were looking at it previously, right, then there was an expectation that this was that kind of breakout price thing kind of dragged back down into this kind of holding here. The way that I would look at this is just like the same with all my TA, just keep it super, super simple. What would I love to see? Well, I just like to see price above this. This is what's suppressing price at the moment. This is kind of what's drawing price lower. So a close above this, and then I think we really see that strength kind of come back in. So what was CTSI? Okay, a little bit similar here actually with this one. So we've got this bearish gap here that's kind of keeping the market suppressed at the moment. And then on the flip side of that, a little bit of a messier one, but we've then got this bullish gap underneath here that kind of held price. It didn't do it in the cleanest way, right? Because ultimately this candle closed below, which would give me an assumption, certainly the price was then moving to attack liquidity below here. When that would have invalidated for me, by the way, would have been when we closed back above it with this candle. Then what you're looking for there is saying, okay, looking at recency, are we looking for price to react? Quite simply here at this bullish gap. So what have we done? We've come up into this area here. Now, I'm interested in this area, but I'm not so worried about it because, look, this wick has gone through, meaning this area has been rebalanced now. What I'm looking for extra confirmation is for price to come and close above this, because then I really don't think there's anything stopping these equal highs being taken out at 0.14902. Okay, so that's a really key target there. So to overlay that now with where we are, if we're not waiting for that confirmation on the daily, quite simply, and this is lovely and clean here, in 30 seconds, we're about to set this gap here, all right? And then we know we've got another bullish gap below it. My assumption would be that we would move to the lower of the two, if at all, because if we look at the 50% of this range here, you know, you're always looking at it from a risk to reward perspective as well. Calvin, you're very, very welcome, mate. If we draw down into this lower part here, wick around here, and then look to move up, what else have we got giving us confluence here is this beautiful gap inversion. So this is now a bullish area. Bearish gap closed above here. Let us know that price was going to head for this high. It did exactly that. Now we've also got a balanced price range through here because we've got a bullish gap here, overlaid a bearish gap here. This should be strong support. This is telling me that this is a really key area here on CTSI, in fact. So much so, I'm going to add a couple of alerts on here to make sure I'm aware when price is coming back down into this area, because this is where I want to look for those buy models to be executed, okay? Now, Injective. Always have a really good laugh with my good friend Julian. King Julian MI is his Twitter handle. Got to meet him, used to work with him, used to be work on our fundamental analysis team at the Bird Nest, off, you know, pursuing his own dreams, other dreams and adventures now as well, which he's doing incredibly well with. And it was wonderful to see him out in Canada, but we always laugh and joke because there's an INJ chart somewhere. It might be on the perp chart actually with Bitget. Maybe. Oh well, I won't trouble you. But basically, we got some ridiculously good bids on INJ. We still kind of have a really good laugh about it these days. It used to be the main trade that I used to chart that I used to trade on, so it always used to come up whenever we did that, but obviously changed it over time, so it's not there now. But either way, this industry will give you a lot of really good memories with some really, really good people, and that one always makes me smile. So bullish gap, this is looking super clean, Jay. Look at this massive expansion candle. We should have seen this coming. You're just reacting here. That candle told you everything you need to know. That's the target here, which is either just hit or, again, left this little failure swing there at the moment. What I love about this price action is it's very balanced. I don't really see a lot to stop it hitting 24.89 here. If we zoom out, I think we're going to have a key support resistance level around here, a very, very clean one, actually, which we can see rejected price last time. Looking, it would be something around this, right? Why this? Where you can see the clean rejections here. Big strong move above retest. Yes, price sold up, ultimately closed back below, led to a really large sell-off. And if we then look back historically, you can see the big strong close above here, almost that as the retest. If we move it up a smidge to align itself with that, you can see that it engages with this level, we still get the same levels through here. So that for me is a really, really key support and resistance level. There's currently resistance through here, right? So want to see price get back above here and then move higher, looking strong at the moment. Again, though, I'd very much welcome to see a move down here. We see here with the order block price retested this strong close above, perfect retest, and then price ultimately pumped higher towards here. So I'm actually even going to move on to an hourly on this one because the rest of it just looks so very strong. Maybe we come down and find a little bid here before moving up as well. But keeping an eye on this one. In terms of going long up here, I'm not really interested. It's just kind of moved a bit too hot. But again, something that's in a really cool bullish structure, I think. Something in and around here. Let's pop an alert on here as well, shall we? Yeah, around kind of 21.10 region would be good. Seeing price come into here, I think it would tell us a lot. If not, then watching this obviously higher time frame order block area, maybe we come and take out this low. It's a gap low, meaning it's a good liquidity pool. So maybe we see something like that where price comes down to take that. Again, induces those short positions before, really ripping the market long. Mike Mads, how would you navigate if you would be completely sidelined right now? Appreciate you. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate you as well, mate. I would say that for me, as I'm kind of describing here, my focus would be kind of at least on a 4-hour chart here. And I'm just kind of thinking to myself, look, I don't want to be buying. I don't want to be buying in here any form of resistance, right? What I really want to do is kind of wait for these pullbacks. Now, we don't always get them, but, let's look at even the most powerful price action moves here, yeah? So what did we get here? We get this initial expansion, big gap here. Fine, we don't hold the gap here, actually, but we do draw down into the equilibrium of this order block. Then we get a secondary expansion. So remember, we just look to our gaps, right? So then I want to be looking for buys in here, okay? Then what I'm doing is I'm just looking for price to be supported as it's moving higher, right? That these down close candles, either singular or consecutive. If there's consecutive, I'm allowing for all of them. And then once price closes above these key areas, it's amazing how often, look, you're just not getting the close. And you do get the close of this one, then look at the retest, look at the retest, look at the reaction here again. Right, and what you want to be doing is just monitoring how price is kind of moving up. We get the same thing again, rejection here, price closes above. We get that retest, we can be a buyer here. What else does this have as confluence? Has this nice skinny bullish gap here. Yeah, so if we're looking for that to kind of overlay, then that's perfect. Then when you see the market turn in the other direction, like we get here, all of a sudden we get a big up close candle close through with a lot of aggression. Well, it doesn't give me a chance to be a seller here, right? I want to see this retested. But what does give me a chance to be a seller is the bearish gap that it creates, right? And then ultimately we can look in here and say, okay, how strong is the rejection we're getting in here? When you see that it's actually pretty strong, then okay, you keep moving that to the downside. So just kind of with that in thought, that's why I've got this level marked out here. I think that's been a really nice retest level there. Now look, there's a chance that it just runs really hot from here and then just blows away, but in which case I would then wait for the next order block to form and price or bullish gap, and then kind of use that as my area that I would then be looking to buy into. But I would say also align yourself with good people. I'm very fortunate to have been at TBN now for kind of over 3.5 years, right? And in the industry for sort of approaching 7. And been able to network and meet with a lot of really, really good people in the space. So what I always say to people, and I stand by this all the time, is look, I'm not and this will make a lot of people laugh that I know, but as we know, I am not a fundamental analyst, right? I'm not. I'm not even that amazing when it comes to the tech, when it comes to crypto, right? I'm a lot older than most people in this space, for example. I'm hardly ancient, but for somebody that grew up, we didn't have computers at school, for example, right? We did. They were just being introduced into like computer labs, and it was the very early days of like MS-DOS. So for me, I know where I need to fill those gaps, and those gaps need to be filled by people that are experts in their, in their area, right, and in their niche, in their vertical. So that's what I do. Surround myself with good people. So find those good people, find those good communities. Obviously, I couldn't recommend you more. Our community over at the Bird Nest, but what I would say is just go and try a few communities, right? This is being completely honest. You'll find the one that has the fit for you, the one where you're getting the winning calls, where you're getting the great education, you get the good engagement, you get the vibrant communities, all right? And then from there, just use that information and just find out, again, risk management. I know it's not the sexy side of this, everyone, and people will just think, oh God, but risk management will save you. You look at, you look at people, multiple Robbins Cup winners, right? And these people are telling you they're not necessarily these incredible once in a generation traders like Larry Williams. He's saying he's a very average trader, right, but an exceptional money and risk manager. So for me, this thing could absolutely moon from here. That's fine, but I don't want to be a buyer here. I want to be a buyer from down here. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit, Mike, and we'll kind of build that out a little bit more as we look at the last couple of charts. I know we're running a little bit long on this, guys, but do want to get them finished off for everybody that had the decency, not decency, but for everybody that asked. Let's just take a very quick look at Brett. We're going to really rip through these last few. Really, really strong, this one. Powerful narrative coming in as well. Obviously, we've just taken this high over here, which is, we're seeing, a pretty decent reaction at that at the moment. That's fine. It's to be expected. This is an interesting area, actually. So just kind of looking at this, or even this top one here, that kind of general area. Did down close candles here, right? So kind of the order block was in here as well, but where this order block is within the realm of this larger one here, technically you would have it off of this, but also would like to kind of allow for that one as well, this kind of area. This looks at the moment like it's providing a really good area for price to draw back to. Had a large expansion very, very often, as much as you don't think you're going to get them. Look, big expansion, everyone gets in up here. What happens? Price corrects back down to a key level to buy it. Big expansion again, people start to panic and get in too high. Stop loss is too tight. Market corrects back down, gives you that, buy the dip or sell the rip. That's what we're telling ourselves when we're in these trading conditions. And, something I just realized, I promise you guys, that I've been totally useless at, was showing you obviously B Pro as well. So B Pro is our in-house indicator. It does so much more than I have it set up for in these shows. There's, much better exponents of this than me as well, right? But you can do these really interesting things where you set your high time frame trailer, your current time frame trailer. You've got baselines, you've got color-enabled trend changes, all the bits and pieces that you can have, even around divergence system as well, which takes into account, I think, 10 or 11 different oscillators, right? And then works out exactly when you're getting these key divergences between them, which gives you the opportunity to then get involved in the trend. And I just need to put labels on, otherwise it's not going to. So look at this. Look at the divergence we got in here. So what happened? You get the bullish divergence, price turns back, took the liquidity sweep. Ultimately, you've been a buyer in here, or you would be a buyer here on this breakout, which would have already returned you really, really nice. The key thing with these is it keeps you in the larger parts of these trends, right? And ultimately, when it flipped bullish here, look at that beautiful trend it got into. When it flipped bearish here, look at that, it caught the majority of the downtrend. And there's a load of different ways to set this up, all right? Again, come along, you can check out all the video content that we've got, or just go and check out Crypto Burb's Twitter as well, because he uses it for all of his trades, and there's a much better exponent of it than me. But if I'm ever kind of a little bit in doubt where I sit with the trend, then that thing is always a really, really go-to for me. So I want to just kind of look here on the 4 hour, because the 4 hour, I think is going to give me a little bit more of an indication. So if we're looking at our principle that price is an external liquidity here, then, looking down to see this internal liquidity that it might come here. Now, with these kind of narrative-driven tokens, right, or any kind of asset, then, you might just see the fact that you don't get these larger corrective moves, right? So if I'm in here now, I'm saying, well, reacting from this bullish gap, what would give me a little bit more conviction here? Okay, well, if we close above these down close candles, then ultimately this is showing a lot of strength, reacting from a bullish, setting a bullish order block, and then price drawing into this to move higher. That to me is very, very clean on Brett. So we're finishing up on 2 more to go, guys, and then I will grab some breath, maybe a couple of painkillers, and then we'll crack ourselves back on. So near, what are we looking at here? So okay, so we can see we've got kind of like a pivot level up there, but let's move this onto the daily. See how we've drawn that out. We can see really clean level here, big close above, retest, price couldn't come in, big reaction here. This is a little bit messy, but I'm not really that worried about that because we can see the relevance that is played here, here, and also here. So this is what we're looking for price to draw towards. Now we can see how messy this gap has been. We can see how we've been talking about these key order blocks, right? So that is invalidated for me now because it was a bullish gap, closed below it there. Expected price to reject, which we did. Yeah, so once that turned into an inversion gap here, we expected price to reject. We got that rejection here, right, which was from this bearish order block. But then price has kind of come back below it again here. So the area is still holding, but just because it's a little bit messy, I want to get rid of that. And at the moment, we've drawn down into this order block. Remember what I was saying about order blocks before, looking for those, just to make sure that we don't get the close below that equilibrium, right? And this just gave us such a good indication that price was willing to hold here. Wicked below, recovered, all the time in the range of this beautiful big order block here that we've since recovered. Now, more confluence I'd like to see on this one is if we can get a close above this bearish order block, excuse me, which has capped the market here. So a close above this, I think then we move back to our really key support resistance level of 5.103, and then ultimately higher to this swing high here, which is at 5.326. If we just suck back into this area here and fail to set this order block, then I think we might kind of be looking to maybe take some liquidity below these lows as well. Decanting that onto a 4-hour, well, we can see here that price has had that really nice close above this order block here, also above this one here. We've now got that beautiful retest. So I think once we start, just looking over here, once we can make a move intraday to this level here, which is 4.920, we got pretty clear overhead here to take a run at that key level. So I think this is looking quite good here on near. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on that. And then SAGA, excuse me, which is the last one that I found our dear friend Hans was asking for here, was, yeah, wow, okay, I mean, that looks pretty strong. I mean, there's a high here, right? Because this high, if I take you back, to this low as well and draw that across, sometimes these levels just really kind of stand out. Something clearly stopped that there. Big wick reaction here, and we back into it. It came up, took liquidity here, offered all this support, and then we had that beautiful close below, perfect retest and sell off, another perfect retest and a massive sell-off. We've now had that retest here and a sell-off here, but the fact it's gone back to attack that again so quickly, I think for me is a real sign of strength here. We're holding this beautiful order block here as well. I think obviously while we're tackling with this level, we want to be a little bit careful, but what I would be looking at here is exactly like this. You don't see me do this often actually, right? But something like the 8-hour or that, where we've got a big clean singular gap. Because basically here on the 4-hour, we've got, this little one here. There's no gap in there. Well, now we've closed that candle, right? Actually, we do have this gap here. This is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see price come down into here, hold this area, and then push back up. If we dip back below this level, but then got back above it, I'd be really, really convinced we're going to make a strong move up. And as we know, we have got some really, really big upside targets on this as well, right? This thing has got a long, long way to run up to there. If we look at that in terms of even if we got established above, you're talking 200% to the highs there. And not tons to kind of stand in. It's not saying this thing's going to springboard there overnight, but definitely something to consider. All right, guys, and we can see here as well, we've got some lovely moves happening. Bitcoin continuing to show us a lot of strength. All right, now the key thing for me here is to not kind of ape into these moves. When we've done this, is to look where those clear levels are. So on Bitcoin, if we're going to show what I would say a little bit of abnormal strength here and not correct much lower, then I'm looking at this order block area here. Also looking at this area here, because on the hourly, we can see we're overlaid with this beautiful bullish gap as well. So this whole area here looks like a great place for price to dip into and move higher. And I would not be hesitant to look if we kind of came in to take out this swing low as well here. All right, which is sat within this big, beautiful bullish gap lower. I think these areas kind of give us great confluence for a move higher. Awesome. Look, big shout out to you all. I know there's an hour and 15-minute show today. We had a lot to get through, but I know there's a lot of opportunities coming in the market at the moment. I know the team have got some amazing calls going out. I've got a meeting with them later on today in about 5 hours as well. We're going to review and look at the market moving ahead. So if you are with us over there, please do keep an eye out because there'll be a lot of new information coming out as well as calls, which you'll see coming in all day. If you're not a member with us, you can join down in the description. Please do come over and try it out. You know, we love having you over there with us. We love getting all that new feedback. Also, if you're interested in competitions, and I don't know who isn't, Bitget at the moment are wonderful partners over there. If you make your first trade deposit for your spot account over there, anything over $100, they're giving you $20 back. And that is a withdrawable bonus. That not that kind of thing that ends up being this, you know, points thing that's locked on your bloody exchange all the time that you can't use. That's $20 in digital format of Tether in your pocket for just making $100 USDT. And you can trade, you know, a lot safer to go in spot wise as well than it is kind of playing about too much with leverage. But if you want to learn about any and all of that, you can find the details down in the description for the WAP link to come and join us over at the Bird Nest. And please do remember about the website as well, right? Loads and loads of good free information available over there, as well as these webinars that we do for free. All right, there's one of these pretty much every day between myself, the legendary Crypto Bird himself as well, your NLP coach, our dear Jimmy, who does some wonderful stuff on the side of psychology as well. So do keep an eye out for that. That all aside, just want to say a big thank you to all of you for joining in today. It's been wonderful to see you as well. Our lovely Erica as well, coming in at the end. Sorry, I didn't see you in the chats there, my friend. And yeah, awesome. Be back with you all on Wednesday. We're going to dive even deeper into some alts. Let's see if we did get some of these plays and setups. We'll share a few more trades with you guys as well. And please do come and trade with us over at Bitget as well. You can get $6,200 in sign-up bonuses at the moment, as well as lots and lots of good exclusive content. I can also give you a few cheeky little indications on some winning systems that I've been trading over there with them for quite some time as well. So please do reach out for me if you do get yourself in on the ref link. And apart from that, have yourselves a wonderful week ahead. Please do keep an eye on that red folder news. But remember, there's no major catalysts hitting the US market this week until Thursday. Have a fantastic week ahead, everyone. I look forward to seeing you all around the nest.